I've always been a sucker for gadgets. The latest smartphone, the smartest home security system, the cloud storage solution with the most seamless interface. You name it, I probably owned it. It wasn't just about the novelty. It was about efficiency, about streamlining my life, making things simpler and more interconnected. I prided myself on being tech-savvy, the kind of guy who embraced the digital age with open arms. I had even convinced Jessica, my wife of 10 years, to ditch her old-school paper calendar and embrace the joys of shared digital calendars and cloud-based file storage. Sharing a cloud account, the Anderson Family Hub we jokingly called it, seemed like the height of modern convenience. We could access family photos from our anniversary trip to Italy, important tax documents, and our meticulously planned shared calendars from anywhere in the world. It was supposed to simplify our lives, create a seamless digital ecosystem where everything was organized and easily accessible. It was supposed to bring us closer too. Little did I know, it would become the digital window into the darkest, most painful secret of my marriage. A secret that had been growing in the shadows, slowly poisoning our relationship, all while I remained blissfully, tragically unaware. Lately, Jessica had been different. Distant, preoccupied. She'd been working longer hours at her advertising agency, coming home exhausted and withdrawn. Our conversations had become strained, filled with polite inquiries about each other's day, but lacking the genuine connection, the spark that had once defined our relationship. We had even stopped sleeping in the same bed. But she was not seeing anyone, was she? I chalked it up to stress at work, the usual pressures of modern life. The advertising world was notoriously demanding, filled with deadlines, demanding clients, and constant competition. I tried to be understanding, supportive, cooking her favorite meals, offering back massages, and suggesting weekend getaways to the beach. I kept thinking that maybe, if I just loved her enough, then she would be happy. Then maybe she would tell me. But she would not. The last time we slept together, it was a blur. The night went by, but it felt like an hour. It just wasn't what it used to be. Maybe this would fix things, I thought. I tried to be understanding, but one innocent click shattered that facade. I even hoped. I was working from home that Tuesday, buried in spreadsheets and conference calls, when the need to access a specific tax document arose. Jessica had scanned it weeks ago, a form related to a property investment, and saved it to our shared cloud account, promising to keep it organized. I was growing irritated. If this is what happens when a marriage changes, I muttered to myself. I vaguely recalled her mentioning something about creating a new folder system, but hadn't paid much attention at the time. I logged into the Anderson Family Hub, the familiar blue and white interface popping up on my screen. As I navigated the file structure, searching for the elusive tax documents folder, I noticed something that stopped me cold. A folder I didn't recognize, conspicuously labeled Projects. The word was benign enough, but I knew almost everything about Jessica's work. And Projects wasn't one of them. It was password protected, which immediately sent a jolt of suspicion through me. Jessica and I had always been fiercely open with each other, sharing passwords, emails, and everything in between. We never kept secrets like that from each other. What could she possibly be hiding? My heart pounded in my chest. Part of me wanted to close the laptop, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, to preserve the illusion of trust and normalcy. But the other part, the part driven by curiosity and a growing sense of unease, compelled me to investigate. I took a deep breath, typed in a few obvious passwords, password, Jessica, Anderson, but none worked. I felt my frustration growing, tinged with a rising sense of dread. Then, on a whim, I tried her birthday formatted in a way we often use for online accounts, July 18, 1984. The folder swung open, revealing a treasure trove of files. My breath caught in my throat. Inside, I found hundreds of photos and videos, meticulously organized into subfolders labeled with dates and cryptic titles. I quickly realized what they were, chronicling a 2-year affair she'd been having with a man named Ethan. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I clicked on the first folder, my fingers trembling, and the images flooded my screen. Jessica, radiant and happy, laughing with Ethan, holding his hand, kissing him with a passion I hadn't seen directed at me in years. It was a digital scrapbook of their forbidden love, meticulously documented and hidden in plain sight. Each photo and video was a fresh stab to the heart, a confirmation of my worst fears. Laughter, stolen kisses, intimate moments in places I recognized. I scrolled through the files, numb with disbelief and a growing sense of anger. There were photos of them at a local coffee shop, a restaurant we often frequented, even a weekend getaway to the beach house we had always talked about buying. How could she? How could she do this to me, to our family? How could she have been living a double life, right under my nose, for so long? The idea that someone could play me for this long made me feel terrible. Had she been plotting this for a long time? Had I been so blind? The questions swirled in my mind, a torrent of pain and confusion. But there was more. She had kept them here for so long, not thinking that anyone was going to find her. Ethan. The name burned in my mind like a brand. I knew the name all too well. I saw his face in front of me. Ethan was our neighbor, living just a few houses down the street with his wife and 2 kids. We often saw them at neighborhood barbecues, community events, even shared a few beers and watched football games together. He was the worst of all. The photos ranged from casual lunch dates to weekend getaways, spanning the past 2 years. 2 years of lies, deception, and betrayal. He and I were friends for longer than that. We had gone to a college together. What had happened? I had even confided in him about my concerns about Jessica's distance, her work stress, and the growing distance between us. He'd offered a sympathetic ear, a pat on the back, and words of encouragement. All the while, he was sleeping with my wife. The hypocrisy, the sheer audacity of it, made my stomach churn. He had been lying, and I could not take it anymore. But the photos, as painful as they were just the beginning. As I continued to delve deeper into the projects folder, I discovered a series of emails, financial documents, and spreadsheets, all meticulously organized and hidden within a subfolder labeled Investment Opportunities. I've never seen her so careful. She did it to protect herself. My initial reaction was confusion. Jessica had always handled our finances, and I trusted her implicitly. But as I scanned the documents, a disturbing picture began to emerge. There were emails detailing financial transactions, transfers of money from Jessica to Ethan, and references to a shared investment opportunity related to a company owned by both Jessica and Ethan. The amounts involved were significant, tens of thousands of dollars transferred over the course of several months. And the more I looked, the more I realized that something was seriously wrong. I knew that Jessica was a co-owner of the company. What I didn't know was that Ethan was also a co-owner. And it got worse. She had set up her own company and transferred the money to him, which was then transferred to her company. Something was not right. I had overheard her talking about a business trip to Chicago, supposedly to meet with potential clients. I did not see her then. I did not talk to her. I just knew that she was not at home. She was on that day with Ethan. The trip was a lie, a cover for a secret rendezvous with her lover. But it was also a lie with a darker, potentially criminal purpose. I stared at the screen, my mind reeling, trying to process the information. The documents suggested embezzlement, possibly even fraud, with Jessica acting as an accessory, knowingly or unknowingly. It had been going on for far too long. She had tricked me. I can't believe that it had been going on for this long. Just 2 weeks ago, I had seen her leave the house. I asked her where she was going. I had said her work was stressful and that she needed to come home more. She had only rolled her eyes. We then proceeded to have the biggest fight ever. What had happened after that? A huge amount of debt had been discovered. And now I was seeing the reason. The debt. The last time I saw her, she told me she was on a business trip. But that was not right. It was a lie. I did not know the truth then. But as I do now, I am in shock. I was going to get to the end of the line. I didn't know how, but I would. My first impulse, after hours of scrolling through the digital wreckage of my marriage, was to confront Jessica immediately. To scream. To demand answers. To unleash the full force of my anger and pain. I wanted to watch her squirm. To see the guilt and remorse etched on her face. I wanted to know why she had done this to me, to us, to our life. I wanted to know what she would do. But a cooler head prevailed. Thanks to years of learned impulse control. I knew that whatever was going on was far more complicated than a simple affair. The financial irregularities, the clandestine meetings, the web of lies, it all pointed to something much darker, much more dangerous. She had to be planning this out, all the way to the end. I needed to proceed with caution, to gather as much information as possible before making any rash decisions. I did not know how. What was going to happen? I acted quickly. I gathered all the evidence from the cloud account, downloaded everything onto a secure external hard drive, a paranoid measure I never thought I'd actually need. I then contacted a lawyer, a family friend who specialized in corporate law and white-collar crime. He was going to tell me. I had faith in him. His office was somber. When I walked into the large mahogany office, I could feel the weight of the law bearing down on my shoulders. She might face jail. After explaining the situation, laying out the evidence, and watching his expression shift from concern to disbelief, he delivered a bombshell that shattered the last vestiges of my hope. "This goes far beyond a simple affair, Michael," he said, his voice grave. "The financial transactions you've described suggest embezzlement, potentially even fraud. Based on what you've shown me, Jessica could be considered an accessory, whether she knew the full extent of Ethan's activities or not." He paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. He knew that it was bad. Depending on the amounts involved and the specific charges, she could be facing serious criminal charges. It could be that she does the thing she never thought, which was being arrested. He had said it with his entire chest. The world seemed to shrink around me. Jessica, my wife, the woman I had shared my life with, potentially facing prison? It seemed surreal, like something out of a movie, not my reality. The lawyer went on to explain the potential consequences, the legal ramifications, and the possible scenarios that could unfold. He also warned me that my involvement, however unwitting, could also be scrutinized. I had not known anything, but could I be sure? He advised me to seek my own legal counsel, to protect my interests, and to carefully consider my next steps. "This is a delicate situation, Michael," he said, his eyes filled with concern. "Whatever you decide to do, you need to be prepared for the fallout. It could be devastating." As I left his office, the weight of his words pressed down on me. I knew that my life was about to change forever, and it was not going to get better. I would see my marriage end. She would be put into jail. My family would be torn, all because of a relationship that I had no control of. She had done this herself. She told me there was a chance she might get sent to jail for it. The whole thing was going to be terrible. Sharing our secrets meant there was nothing for her. She was the same girl, but she had become a new one. The new her. Sleep became a luxury, a distant memory. I spent the next few days in a daze, replaying the evidence in my mind, agonizing over my options, and wrestling with the conflicting emotions that threatened to consume me. She had really done this. She had planned her life away. What would happen now? The lawyer's words echoed in my head. "You have the power to send your wife to prison, to destroy her life. But you also have a responsibility to protect yourself, your children, and any other potential victims of Jessica's scheme." His words were not just words. They were more than that. I could try to confront Jessica, to give her a chance to explain, to confess, to make amends. But could I trust her? After everything she had done, after all the lies she had told, could I ever believe anything she said again? I had been betrayed for too long. And as a man, I could not take it. And even if she did confess, what then? Could I forgive her? Could I salvage our marriage, our family? Or was the damage irreparable, the trust shattered beyond repair? Or I could remain silent, bury the evidence, and try to move on with my life. I would lose it all, but it was my right to do that. But what about the victims? What about the other investors who had been swindled out of their money? What about the reputation of the company, the employees who relied on its success? What about my own conscience? Could I live with the knowledge that I had allowed Jessica's crimes to go unpunished? The weight of the decision was crushing, the moral implications overwhelming. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, forced to choose between two equally terrible outcomes. Would she change? Probably not. I did not think it would happen. I consulted with my own lawyer, laying out my options and seeking his guidance. He advised me to cooperate with the authorities, to turn over the evidence and let them investigate. He warned me that Jessica could face serious criminal charges, and that my involvement, however unwitting, could also be scrutinized. I also had a chance of facing time. Finally, after days of torturous deliberation, I made my decision. She would go down. I had a plan. I gathered all the evidence, the photos, the emails, the financial documents, and contacted the local FBI field office. I explained the situation, presented the evidence, and agreed to cooperate fully with their investigation. The only decision I had to make. As they arrived at my house, the officers began questioning Jessica about the embezzlement and fraud. She maintained her innocence, claiming to have no knowledge of Ethan's activities and portraying herself as a victim of his manipulation. But the evidence was overwhelming, the digital trail too damning to ignore. With a heavy heart, I watched as the officers placed Jessica under arrest, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. As they walked her out of the house, she turned to me, her eyes filled with tears and a mixture of anger and betrayal. "How could you do this to me, Michael?" she cried, her voice trembling. "I loved you. I thought you loved me." Loved? She had only been playing me. The police car door slammed shut, and she was gone, swallowed up by the flashing lights and the sirens blaring in the distance. As they arrived, as the police officers took Jessica, I had only one word to say: goodbye. The silence that followed was deafening, the emptiness in the house palpable. I had made the only decision I could, the only decision that aligned with my conscience and my sense of justice. But it came at a terrible cost. There was not a single soul around. The investigation dragged on for months, the details of Jessica and Ethan's scheme slowly unraveling. She was charged with multiple counts of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Ethan, who was already under investigation for similar offenses, was also arrested and charged as her co-conspirator. At trial, Jessica pleaded not guilty, claiming she had been unaware of Ethan's fraudulent activities and that she had been manipulated and deceived. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury found her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. She was never going to see us again. As she faced her sentence, I knew that I had made the only choice I could. I watched from the courtroom gallery, my heart aching with a mixture of sadness and relief. I knew that I had done the right thing, but the victory felt hollow, the price too high. What was justice if I could not get back to who I used to be? The cloud, once a symbol of connection and convenience, had become a symbol of betrayal and destruction, a constant reminder of the darkness that could lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect relationships. And it also turned me into a criminal. The only difference, however, was that I got away with it. And I could never be loved again.